Hello everyone and welcome to another ride overview. Today we will be talking about the reverse freefall coaster, aka the most boring coaster type in the game. It is the only coaster type where absolutely no creativity at all is required, as all the designs are the exact same except for the size. However, while I was doing research into this coaster type, I was quite positively surprised at how good this one-trick pony actually is. It's not a top tier coaster type by any means, but its inclusion in my top 5 worst coaster types was definitely a mistake. Every reverse freefall coaster does the following. When it departs the station, it slowly accelerates on a long straight stretch of track. After that it climbs a vertical tower and it then does the same but in reverse, slowing down on the straight stretch of track. Some reverse freefall coasters are bigger than others, but the design never changes. Not only is the ride quite boring, it also doesn't have great stats. Most reverse freefall coasters have between 4.5 and 5.5 excitement, with an intensity rating that's about 3 points higher. It's not quite as bad as the hardline, but it's also not very far away from it. This does have an upside though, and that is that it allows you to charge a lot for it. How much you can charge for a ride depends on all 3 stats, and for the reverse freefall coaster the intensity rating contributes the most. Later on in the video we will see that you can charge much more for this ride than you would probably expect. Before we talk about that, let's first go through the elements that it has available and the stat requirements. Usually I only list the special elements, but since the reverse freefall coaster only has one non-special element, I might as well include it. The 3 special elements are the station, a large level to vertical piece and a vertical tower piece. The only other track piece that it has available is the straight piece. It may seem like this is a booster piece since it looks like one and the car accelerates while it is on it, but it's actually not. I'll explain why that is later in the video. Open RCT2 has added a 5th element, which is the photo section. This can become useful if you want to squeeze every little last penny out of your guests. Next up are the stat requirements. This is much easier than it is for most other coaster types, as the only stat requirement is a maximum drop height of 25 meters. Interestingly enough, this is the highest maximum drop height requirement in the game, tied with the air-powered vertical coaster. If you don't meet this stat requirement, all your stats will be divided by 2. Since all the designs are the same, there's not much use in showing off different designs, but I'll give you 2 designs anyway. The first one is the smallest design that does not get stat penalties. It is 2 station pieces, 13 straight pieces, a level to vertical piece and then 2 vertical pieces. As discussed before, the excitement rating is quite low and the excitement to intensity ratio is quite bad. But this is not a problem. The only thing that the excitement rating does is determine how much you can charge for a ride and how much it contributes to the park value. For this coaster type, the intensity contributes more to both of those things than the excitement, so the low excitement doesn't really matter. Contradictory to popular belief, the excitement rating has 0 influence on whether guests want to ride a ride. This design is actually quite great, as it can fit into really narrow spaces since it's just one wide and you can charge surprisingly much for it. If this is the only reverse freefall coaster in your park and it is between 0 and 5 months old, you can charge about $20 for it. If you have multiple reverse freefall coasters in your park and they're more than 1 year and 5 months old, you can still charge more than $10 for them. This gives them a very high profit for their cost and size. The next design is the largest reverse freefall coaster that stays under 10 intensity. It is the same design except it has 138 straight pieces and 16 vertical pieces. I don't recommend ever building this design. Sure, you can charge about 50% more for it than the smallest design, but it has a throughput of only about 320 guests per hour, which is roughly 4 times as low as the smallest design. It is also monstrously big and won't fit in a lot of scenarios. In fact, unless you're building this coaster type for the looks, I recommend you only ever build the previous design, as it's by far the most optimal. There are 2 more interesting facts that I want to share with you. The first is the support limit. It is common knowledge that the Giga Coaster has the highest support limit in the game, but that common knowledge is wrong. Both the reverse freefall coaster and the air-powered vertical coaster can go higher. Not only can they go higher, they don't even have a support limit at all. The only thing that they are bound by is the height limit of the game, which is at about 180 meters. They can't really make use of it without getting extreme intensity ratings, but it is interesting nonetheless. The last thing that I want to talk about is these apparent booster pieces. When I discussed the elements, I already said that these aren't actually booster pieces and rather just regular straight pieces that just look and act like booster pieces. In RCT2 Vanilla and Classic this doesn't really matter, but when using some of the cheats that OpenRCT2 offers, knowing how this works can be quite useful. We can determine how the car actually gets boosted by realizing that there are 3 possible causes. It can be the track pieces that make the car accelerate, it can be the train type, or it can be the coaster type. With the help of some cheats we can change each of those factors individually, and if the train stops accelerating when we've changed one of the factors, that factor is the cause. Let's first check for the track pieces. We can do this by merging a reverse freefall coaster into some other straight track pieces, like ones from a looping coaster. When we test the ride, we see that the car is still accelerating on the normal straight pieces from the looping coaster, which confirms my claim that it's not the track pieces that cause the acceleration. Next up is the train type. For this we simply run a different train type on a reverse freefall coaster. Here I've chosen a looping coaster train. As we can see, it still accelerates like the reverse freefall coaster does, so the train type doesn't matter either. This leaves us with the third possible factor, the coaster type. We can test this one by merging a looping coaster with a reverse freefall car into some straight reverse freefall track pieces. We now have a reverse freefall car on a reverse freefall coaster track, but it doesn't accelerate. This proves that it is the coaster type that causes the acceleration. Whenever the train from a reverse freefall coaster is on a straight track piece, it treats it as a slow booster track when going forwards and a slow brake when going backwards. You can even see that if I now change the coaster type to a reverse freefall coaster, it suddenly starts accelerating. And that was it for the reverse freefall coaster. A coaster type that's very boring to build, but is also surprisingly good at the one thing it does. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like or leave a comment. You can also subscribe or follow me on Twitch. Thank you all for watching and I will see you in the next video.